Hey there, YouTube. I'm Yukitsu. This is Yukitsu Times. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back to a little bit of Battlefleet Gothic. Just as a last final note, why on earth would you want to play Eldar? What do they look like in the late game, and what's a good composition for them? Well, Eldar's composition is so straightforward because they don't have ship options, and that's something that I wish they would do something about. They stuck with the ships that existed for Eldar, and one of the things that I think they should have done is mixed in the Craft World Eldar with the Eldar Raiders into one sort of Eldar faction. That would have given them just a little bit more diversity and let them play in a couple different ways that maybe piss people off a little bit less, because the Eldar Corsair is definitely based around annoying people. So, in any event, though, the only battleship that you've got is the Void Stalker. It is a massive beast of a ship. It is the most feared ship, I think, right now on multiplayer, just because its damage is it's ridiculous. Its armament is 4 of those heavy prow pulsars there. It has more range than a standard one, but the same damage. Its damage is already too high, so this thing just melts ships apart. It's got 6 of these heavy prow star cannons. For a weapon battery, it's got 9,000 range. It's got a decent stat profile. It doesn't have the 12,000 range that a lot of other people do at this tier, but they don't really need it. It just does damage. It's okay. It's not great or anything. They've only got 6 of them. So these things kind of hit or miss. The rate of fire is really nice. Their damage is actually quite decent for a high rate of fire weapon, but it's nothing to write home about. This is the only ship in the Eldar arsenal that has more than one launch bay. It has 4 launch bays of those excellent bombers fighters, so you can actually use this as a dedicated carrier type vehicle, and I actually do to a certain extent with the efficient pilots there. If we go into our crew, I've upgraded the squadron sergeants to maximum, then our blade sworn, and last thing that we're going to upgrade is probably going to be the master gunner there. But if we look at our other upgrades here, we've got ourselves the Phoenix Sail, or Dragon Sail rather. It gives us an additional 50 speed when using move orders, and this is so important because it lets this ship keep up with our other ships in the line there, our Eclipses and stuff like that, and it lets us keep the whole group together, lets us close the gap, it lets us get away a little bit better. If you have an upgraded speed value on a Void Stalker, Chaos ships can catch up to them, light cruisers with upgrades can catch up to them, and you don't want that to happen to your big, scary battleship. You still want to be using it as a skirmishing type ship. To that end, you definitely want that speed boost. We've got our squadron upgrade because we do want to use this as a carrier. We've got the deflecting hollow field. We're not getting belt armor on this anymore because once we've got these ships tiered up to cap out those crews, we don't have that much vulnerability to boarding actions or teleport attacks anymore. If we look here, we've got a troop value of 79, which is ridiculously good. It's as high as the orcs can get realistically. The only things that are higher are the Nurgle ships at 97% or 99 or something like 89. 89 is what they can get against everything. And with the turret value here, they've got a 97% chance to deflect a boarding action. With the fighter screens, they're going to ignore the assault boats. The only thing that can still work on this ship is teleport attacks. At 79% chance of blocking that, they're pretty okay. They're better off than most other ships in the game. So we don't need the belt armor. What we need to focus on is blocking or ignoring the weapon shots, dealing critical hits to our systems. So yeah, that's why we want to get that deflecting hollow field once we've gotten to the point where we're at that troop value. The way that you get that troop value is you go Bale 10, and that you can see from the paint scheme that is what we're doing here, and the funky little heart symbol there, which actually is a symbol of Isha, I believe. But yeah, this ship is ridiculously resilient to those sort of criticals now, and I don't need belt armor because of that. Next up, we've got our Eclipses. Actually, no, we'll look at skills here. For this, we've got a disruption or a plasma bomb rather. It's just a decent thing to dump onto an enemy group or cluster, especially if fighters, if you can get their shields down. My fleet typically has problems with fighters and stuff like that, and plasma bombs are decent at dealing with those sort of things, or not fighters, escorts rather. We're using the Augur Disruptors. They're kind of an obnoxious but hilarious thing that you can use for Eldar fleets. I think that it's kind of just something I added in there when I didn't have anything else to take. We've got the stasis bomb, always a good thing to have when you're trying to get away from the enemy. You can either dump it on your own ships so that if they try and chase you, they can't catch up because they have to go around it, or if they do try to go through it, they get caught up in it, and you can sort of spin around, shoot them with your pulsars. The other thing is we've got Vol's Maneuver. That's because the ship is so slow and cumbersome by contrast to normal with the 30 degree per second turn radius, which is actually still really good, but for Eldar that's really slow. This lets you do an instant 180 and then zoom away. It's just very, very effective for those hit and runs on this heavier sort of ship, and it makes it much more easy to get away from fights with this ship. We got our Eclipses set up like miniature versions of the Void Stalker because they are basically miniature versions of the Void Stalker. They've got 3 of those pulsars, regular distance ones. They've got shuriken catapults. They've got a launch bay as well, and the launch bay does not shoot as many fighters out. Just one launch bay, making it not a dedicated carrier. I think of that as a fighter screen generator with the bomber as a sort of secondary bonus perk there. In fact, we've got Dark Star bomber or Dark Star fighters on one of these Eclipses, but this mostly is just used because it's got 3 lances all focused in one big, huge, scary beam. Basically just going to shred straight through an enemy there. We've also got Bale 10 on these guys. They're highly resistant to boarding actions and to teleport attacks and to assault boats, so they're just very, very resilient to that sort of thing. Because of that, we've again gone for that deflecting hollow field. This one is set up to be an annoying bastard. It's got void blending, which lets you run silently for twice as long. If we look at running silently, normally it lasts for, I think that actually is the boosted duration, but 90 seconds there. We could get our crew upgraded for the Spirit Stones, but we're not worried about that right now. If we were to look at our upgrades, this particular ship has the deflecting hollow field and enhanced infinity circuit, skills. This one has got the disruption bomb. It's got a Wandering Spirit Stone, which is basically your recon beacon, as well as Val's Maneuver, because again, this is not the best at turning. It's got decent speed, so I don't need to give it the Dragon Sail. At 262, it doesn't need that to keep up with other ships, though, so that is currently the way that one is set up. If we look at our crew, I've got Bone Singers set up there, as well as the Blade Sworn, of course, the Squadron Sergeants. Oops, just a second. Sorry about that. Yeah, we don't get Squadron Sergeants on these guys because they've only got the one carrier bay, and they're not really designed for that. The reason that we get Bone Singers is because with only 800 hit points, hull integrity to this, the additional damage that you repair off of that, if we look at it, it's got a duration of 45 seconds, so it basically is an additional 45 damage, which is more by percent for the Eldar ships than it is for anyone else's. So it works out pretty well for us. I don't actually know how much you actually heal. 2 per second normally, this upgrades it to 3 basically, so, you know, it's a pretty good boost to the Eldar ships there. Next up, we'll probably be getting the Spirit Stone upgrades. We could get the Master Gunner upgrades, but I think that Spirit Stones is a better choice for this particular type of ship. This one, we've got a fairly similar system there. We've got the Vigilant Spirit Stones instead, which raises detection radius. It lets it see out to 7,500 with the Void Blending that lets the ship be a complete wanker as well. This one similarly has got... this one has actually fairly different skills, though. It's got a Disruption Bomb again. Just being able to strip shields before you start hitting them with the Pulsars is really, really strong. This is mostly a thing that you use against Orcs and Imperials, who tend to have those supercharged Void Screens. It's got the Dark Star Squadron, just because I think that you can never have too much fighter coverage out there when there are certain people who just have tons and tons of torpedoes or tons and tons of assault boats. We've got Val's Maneuver as well, just because, again, you need it on this kind of ship. If we look at our crew, again, same sort of direction going there. Cruisers, the Shadow, this is designed entirely around fighting against other Eldar. We're probably actually going to get this set up with Ally Talk. We'll wait until our ships have got access to the Pathfinder Webway Assault, use those against Eldar ships and just cripple something important like their generators or their engines so that we can get in there and deal more damage with their pulsars. But these things are just really, really bad. They've got these Prow Star cannons, they've got the torpedo launcher. You sort of know what they're about, and they're only really any good against Eldar. We take the Dark Star squadrons so that they can't cripple us with a Void Stalker just kiting away with their bomber squads endlessly. That would be really annoying. We've actually got Taunt on 2 of them, because again, this is for fighting other Eldar. Belt Armor, because we're not going Bale 10 with these guys. And we've actually got the additional Webway Portal Strikes, because this lets us do more Lightning Strikes, which is effective against most Eldar. The exception, of course, is if they go Ulthway. Now, we could go Bale 10 and just really wreck them with Lightning Strikes, but it's not necessarily the best solution against Eldar. It's just a nice secondary, and none of the upgrades that for their weapons really work all that well on the Shadow here against other Eldar. Like, if we look at this, Blessing of Vol, 25% armor. They've already got 25 armor, so that doesn't really help at all. Could do the range, but our accuracy becomes really, really bad against other Eldar ships out at that range. We probably will actually do the accelerated batteries next, but for now, this is what we sort of got. Like, none of these upgrades really work against them, and since we'll be chasing with a relatively faster ship, the only thing that they could use, potentially they could get away from this, is something like a Solaris. Or an Aurora would do absolutely nothing against a Shadow, because their weapon doesn't work against it. So that's sort of how we got that set up. Going to our light cruisers, we've got the Auroras. We've got them set up to be Altway pattern light cruisers here, and these things are designed to take out swarms of things like savage gunships, people who spam those, or sword frigates, or stuff like that. Because there are a lot of people out there who just take a ton of escorts nowadays, and there are some fleet compositions that work well with that. And that's because Eldar don't have the best tools for dealing with large numbers of escorts necessarily. They don't have anything like the Nova cannons or anything like that. And the Auroras are pretty decent at dealing with that, because those torpedoes are very good at long-range engagement against a few of those types of escorts. Their turret values are not great, and they're usually out in front of the things that do have good turret values. Now, going past those escorts and trying to hit targets behind them, the turrets really do add up in that case. But in this case, what we do is we drop down maelstroms on top of the sort of squadrons of escorts. It'll tick damage, but it won't actually kill most of them, or any of them really. If you look here, it lasts for 45 seconds, dealing 4 damage per second. If they're in there the entire duration of it, it will just barely not actually kill an escort that has 200 hit points. It'll leave them with just enough hit points to limp out of there. So if they limp out there, they'll repair, they'll get back up to pretty much full health, and this leaves us in a predicament where by the time we get our maelstroms up again, they'll be able to repair again. And so you finish them off with a torpedo, because one torpedo hit, in addition to the full maelstrom effect, will destroy one of those escorts. You kind of need 2 maelstroms, because they're not going to be in the maelstrom for 45 seconds, so you just sort of pop one down. They try and boost out of it. You pop down the other one in the new location where they are, and they'll probably have taken enough damage that a torpedo volley will finish them off, or if that doesn't, just activate pulsars, and that'll finish them off as well. So this is for clearing out those gigantic swarms of those sorts of things. It helps out quite a bit in that case. And even if they didn't take a gigantic swarm of that, these things are pretty effective. We've got the additional range. It lets us sort of poke, sweep beams across gas clouds or whatever. But these upgrades aren't as important. We've got belt armor, because we're still pretty weak to criticals if they get in close and board us, because our troop value only 59, turret value only 9, so we've only got 68% defense against boarding action or assault boats. So if we're not behind our own fighter screens, these things aren't going to necessarily do too well. We are going to have our Solaris is probably upgraded with Altway as well. The only favor that I'm not going for in this particular setup is same hand, because I don't particularly think that this produces a very fun means of playing the game, where it's just your ships are always hidden 100% of the time, and that's very easy to do with the same hand if you've also got the auger disruptors. So let's go ahead and hit search here and take a look at how the fleet performs. Mostly it gets raged at, but that's because a lot of people don't know how to deal with Eldar, or even what Eldar can do or are capable of doing. Alright, so we've got a cruiser clash. What were we up against? We're up against Hussar, who is an Imperial. It's possible that he's going to spam Nova cannons, which is something that is a very, very smart thing to do against Eldar. We're going to go ahead and take our biggest, beefiest ships. Can just barely squeeze in our 3 big beefy ships into this sort of composition here. Now, if he does take a whole bunch of swords, we're going to be in a little bit of trouble, but typically people don't take that against Eldar as the Imperials, because they don't have any means of catching up to Eldar ships, and they don't take, they're not durable enough to withstand those sort of blasts. They're kind of expensive, like they're not as good as savage gunships or something like that. But even then, they can be kind of annoying. The worst one is Chaos, because they can bring out all those iconoclasts, but since they've only got 100 hit points, like a pulsar volley from anything kills one instantly instead of just sort of damaging it, and it's just really, really bad for them. So yeah, what we have to look out for in this particular case is if they have got lots and lots of sword frigates, then we're kind of going to have to chip away at them slowly and gradually. It's going to be a really slow, methodical, and boring process, because they just take so long to kill. If they have got Nova Cannon spam, then we're going to be a little bit better off, just because Nova Cannons, these things are beefy enough to tank a couple of shots from Nova Cannons as opposed to a lot of other Eldar ships. We're not going to have our bomb on default activation. We are going to have our Avatar of War on default deployment, though, because now he's got 5 ships. I am definitely expecting Nova Cannon spam here to a certain extent, but he might actually have to have some Dauntlesses in that composition if he's got 5 ships. Well, we'll see when we get a bit closer there. I don't see anything indicating that he's got a Mars-class ship, no fighters or anything like that. So, yeah, we're just going to go ahead, all guns blazing, just kind of walk right up to them, drop a fleet beacon, see what happens, but want to have all our ships selected and just be ready for a Nova Cannon blast as soon as we sort of hear one going off and see when the reticle for it we're going to boost instantly, but if they've got enough they can just keep firing them, so that was a mine there.
We ride the solar winds.
Alright, so something on their right flank, my left, is faster than the others. I'm not sure if it's a Dauntless or if it's a light cruiser or if it's an escort. Oops, I forgot to disable this, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm not afraid at all of torpedoes because, okay, so that's a Dauntless Mark II. We have so many fighters that I'm not really intimidated at all. Yeah, they've got a Widowmaker somewhere in there. Yeah, just look at this. None of those torpedoes getting anywhere through there. Alright, so let's take out this guy, I guess, first. And this is why you play Eldar. Look at that damage. Okay, so that ship is gone. Actually, you know what? Let's just turn around here. Let's get out of here. And that's the effects of that that Vols maneuver there, letting us spin around like that. These missiles are going to hit me, I think. Oh no, a lot of them got shot down. Okay. One fire on board. You know what, we're just going to tank that. I don't want to use my repair on one fire. Alright, so we got our shots again here. Oh, he's got supercharged void shield. Let's get out of there with that. Let's have you guys dump a recon beacon on it. That supercharged void shield will go away, so now that it has, we're going to go ahead and start firing with our pulsars again. And just flip around and get out of there. And this fire is lasting a long time. Deals 90 damage per fire, if I recall correctly. Alright, so our bomber deployments are on automatic, but could probably have gotten them. Alright, well, we'll just kill you then. Looks like a Space Marine equipped one. Alright. Probably need to deploy more fighters again pretty soon. Looks like that guy's trying to brace for impact, which doesn't really matter because I'm not actually capable of shooting right now. Let's just shoot at this guy, I think. Oh wait, this guy's still on cooldown. Alright, we'll have you guys kill him. Alright, so here my opponent is starting to fleet. So my weapons look like they've been destroyed, but my opponent is just full of flight here. And I'm just going to let him run. I don't really care. There's the Widowmaker. Yeah, and this is sort of how Eldar play. They're just really mean. These Star Cannons can actually deal a little bit of damage, but then you see the pulsar activate and it's just like instant death there. And that's Eldar. It's just, you want to instantly melt someone's face and then run away. That's how they play. My opponent there didn't have the tools really to deal with Eldar. I think some people are under the impression that like high-tier Eldar are weak to torpedoes. and in particular those melted torpedoes, because fires theoretically do a lot of damage, and you can see that it did do a lot of damage. The reason that melted torpedoes in particular work against Eldar is because they don't have high resistance from their armor. Melted torpedoes only have like a 50% chance against a chaos ship or something like that of going through the armor, compared to a normal torpedo. A normal torpedo has a 25% chance of being blocked by armor because it ignores most of it. But against Eldar, they've only got 25% armor resist against both types, so you might as well fire the melted torpedoes with higher damage. But the problem is you're never going to actually deal that damage because they have such big, beefy fighter screens. Their fighter screens are more effective. They're stronger than other people's fighters. So, you know, you need different ordnance, or you need to use your broadsides, and my opponent just wasn't using his broadsides there. So, you know, this really was not really a fair fight for my opponent because he didn't have the tools to beat Eldar, and it really showed. So, yeah, that's why you play Eldar. Just that sheer amount of damage that my opponent was instantly taking in a second there, just taking his ship apart before he could even really react. It just is not something that is, even though he had tactical cogitators on, there's nothing he could do about it, as all three ships had converged on that one vessel of his, took out his shields immediately and destroyed him before he could even react. He tried doing some lightning strikes against me, it didn't work, and you know, what little damage we did take, our Bone Singers able to heal us a lot of damage, so it worked out pretty well for us. Anyway, that's all the faction basics. I might go through some more stuff about the game as I sort of play more of it, but that's all I really know about it right now as far as why I have my fleet composition set the way I have it, what I've been facing, and it's been a lot of fun. But anyway, I hope you found this video enjoyable, and of course, as always, I hope to see you all next time.